Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me for our session on accelerating innovation through a digital transformation. This is the first session we're going to have of a series of a few to talk about helping you prepare for this digital transformation. My name is Anthony Rodriguez, Vice President with KETIV, and I'm joined by Nathan Eliason, Senior Technical Specialist. Both Nathan and I have more than 20 years experience working in the manufacturing industry, and we're looking forward to presenting this with you and making this as interactive as we can, given the environment we're in. At KETIV, our focus is really to help you create a better tomorrow for you and your company. That is really what inspires us, what motivates us, and we believe strongly that we can make each other better by working and empowering each other and working together. The way we do that, one way we do that is making sure we keep up with industry trends that you're faced with. And when we think about all of the industry trends we're faced with today, there's a myriad. We hear about global population increasing. There are new manufacturing techniques that are available today. Computing power is available more so than ever before at a cost that's a fraction of what it's ever been. Automation is taking off. Digitization is becoming the norm. All of this can be seen as a threat to our business or as an opportunity. And the question we want to help with is, how do we respond? More recently, coronavirus has accelerated some of the shift, having to work mobile and be more agile, adjusting to supply chain demands. All of this is affecting the things we make, how we make those things, and the kind of work we all do. And it's all about looking at processes we have and thinking about how we can merge those processes to simplify how we bring products to market. When you think back at the early 2000s, if you look at the Fortune 500 list of companies, half of those companies are no longer around. That was the last shift we saw in our industry. And again, the question we want to help with is, how do we respond? How do we make sure we use this as an opportunity to grow our business, to grow ourselves, and to be better organizations? At KETIV, we've always helped our customers create better products. And more recently, we began to shift in helping you by becoming a full service partner to our manufacturing and innovation clients. Our goal is to help you win more business and remain competitive, improve your efficiency, and really drive innovation, help your employees work on more valuable tasks like R&D, bringing products to market, and improving efficiency, and leaving some of the more mundane tasks to digital techniques. And that's part of what Nathan will be sharing today. Now, this isn't a new idea or anything new for KETIV. We've been around about 40 years. And in the beginning, our focus was to help you move from paper documentation and digitize those into CAD. Go ahead, Nathan. From there, we began to look at how to take that digital information and optimize the way you make your products, the products you actually make, and the kind of work your employees are doing. The next shift is to rethink how we're doing these things. And if we think about the products you make today, you're transforming how those products are made, being connected to the products when they're in the field, providing your customers more options to configure, design, specify what they want when you ship it to them. It doesn't mean that time to market's more loose. Customers want products today. And how we make those products is also transforming. There's new manufacturing methods, new ways of connecting your engineering information with those manufacturing methods. And of course, in all of our businesses, the two most important things are the products we make and the customers we make them for. And the customers we make them for's requirements are changing as well. And that's really what today is all about in this next series of sessions, is how do we better engage the customers we're working with? How do we provide them the options they're looking for and still get those products to them in the time frame they demand? It's all about how do we make our business better? And what is this shift going to mean to us? Is this going to be looked at as a threat or an opportunity? And with that said, the first session we're going to spend time on today is Nathan's going to share with you the importance of creating a data backbone for your engineering and manufacturing organization. We believe that having this backbone set and established will provide you a way to understand the data you create, look at the data that's coming, and harness it to make better decisions in other parts of your business, like your sales organization, your manufacturing organization, quality, and even maintenance and repair with customers that are using your products in the field. Again, just a reminder, if you do have questions or ideas, feel free to share those in the Q&A panel.
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony. So as Anthony was talking about, there's been this digital transformation that has taken place over these past few years. And with this digital transformation, I want to go back in time to kind of the pre-PC era. Back then, documents were handwritten, engineering designs were actually hand-drawn on the drafting board. All of this information was manually managed and kept inside of physical filing cabinets. Anytime you wanted to machine anything, you had to manually set it up, manually operate it. And all of our processes, like getting signatures, all of that had to be done by people walking a physical set of papers from person to person gathering signatures. So all process management was manual as well. Then in the 80s, PCs started to become more commonplace. And so companies said, hey, let's scan all of our data so that at least we can make it readily available for all of our employees. They also recreated their forms on computers. So now instead of having to write out on the form, you could go ahead and type in the information. 2D CAD became very popular. Network folder storage, we started putting all of our information on network storage drives. We improved the way that we could set up machining. 2.5 axis came about where we could do more there. And we relied on spreadsheet and email to manage our processes. Now, what's interesting is in this digitization stage, really our way of doing things didn't change. It's just that instead of doing it manually, we were now doing it digitally. So we basically copied the same way we did stuff before, but we just did it in a digital format. Well, then, the 90s, early 2000s came, and we really moved into this digitalization stage. And this is where instead of having forms that mimicked physical forms that we used to fill out by hand, they started creating systems that could intelligently gather data. And these systems were purpose-built by, are you managing accounting? Are you managing files? They were purpose-built based on what your role was. What was nice about this was that information was stored in databases, which made it real easy to search for and find information that we needed to get to very quickly. We also found that with our 3D CAD models, we could use them not only to get to a 2D drawing, but we could use them to do FEA analysis. We could use them to speed up manufacturing. There were a lot of different things that we found out that we could make it faster and easier and more efficient to run operations within an organization. We even automated processes so that, based on where you are with a specific process, it would automatically send out notifications via email or other avenues so that people could go in, review the information they needed to review, and either approve or reject different parts of projects. Now, this was fantastic. And this really helped productivity, increase significantly. But at this point in time, the processes were, pretty siloed. You're in your ERP system. Then if you had to go from an ERP system to a PLM system, sometimes you had to re-enter and retype a whole bunch of data. So within each system, everything worked well. It's just when we went across systems, that's where things still kind of broke down sometimes and still impeded our efficiency from gaining even more. So now when we look at digital transformation, this is the next phase that we've been in for the past decade probably, and it will continue on into the future. And this is, how do we take those systems now and connect them together in a meaningful way that improves our customer experience, that allows us to think of new ways of doing business. Like Anthony said, there's new manufacturing technology out there. I just read the other day where not too far from where I live, they're going to 3D print an entire housing development of like 15 to 20 homes. So things are changing drastically. We're optimizing our entire value chain. You want to think, more and more artificial intelligence, there's a lot of tools out there, and you want to know and understand what they can do, what their limitations are, and how you can deploy those strategically. You also want to automate, just like Anthony said, a lot of the mundane work where it's just following rules over and over again. You want to automate that and hand that over to computers so that your engineers can create new products or do things that will bring you into the next evolution, whatever that ends up being. And the bottom line is that you want to intelligently manage your digital data from cradle to grave. So if we chart that out on kind of this digital transformation journey, it's important to note that a lot of times when we talk to different companies, some processes are still analog. Some processes are digitized. Sometimes they might have, an ERP system that works really well in their digitalization, but for PLM related activities, they might still be doing things by hand. I mean, we definitely see this all over the board. And, really the key future that we're all driving towards is having all of our systems set up to where customers can easily place orders. We can easily gather their requirements. That can feed into design systems, that can feed into manufacturing systems. And that way we can be faster at responding to our customer and significantly reduce our lead times. Now, if we look at this chart, the top band really deals with data and process management. The middle band is design and engineering, and the bottom is manufacturing. And for today's presentation, we're really going to be sticking to this top band, which really revolves around data and process management. So if we look at a process from sales all the way through service, often a lot of companies out there have some type of CRM tool like Salesforce.com or something like that. And here is where they can capture customer requirements. They can gather important data that engineering is going to need in order to start doing their design work. And then they hand that over to engineering. And engineering will use CAD tools, and CAD can be mechanical, it can be electrical, it can be plumbing. There are multiple disciplines that we have for CAD. And here they start building the product structure. Now, there's a lot of complex information with CAD, so they typically will manage that in a PDM system, which stands for Product Data Management. And that's all about managing the revisions of the data, the relationships in the data, and it's starting to bring that bill of material to the next stage or the next level. From there, it's common to move into the PLM phase. Now, when you get to the PLM phase, here we want to extend the engineering bomb that we initially started. We start thinking about suppliers, we start thinking about making sure that everything is spec'd properly and ready to go to the next phase, which is when we get into production. And I know a lot of companies already have ERP systems. That's typically where companies start when they do these types of projects, and MES. And that's about managing your inventory, your materials, production analysis, resource scheduling. All of those are in that production stage. Now, as I mentioned, today we're going to really focus on the product data and the process management. And so we're really going to be focused on PDM and PLM. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about Vault PLM. Now, I want to go back and remind you, when we're talking about this digital transformation, it's deployment of digital technology that is customer-centric. It empowers and enables employees to make better decisions. It improves decision-making, gives them information that they need to make better choices, and it increases our process efficiency. Now, when you read articles on digital transformation, they will tell you that the real key behind all of this is customer-centric. Everything you do has to be to give your customer a better experience. And so, what do customers want, right? What customers want are short lead times. They want quality products. They want product support. They want to know that, hey, if this product does break down, I want to know that someone's behind me supporting me. They want products that are tailored to their needs. And more so lately, we've seen a trend where, whether your customers are business or consumers, they want to be more environmentally responsible. They want to know that, hey, these new processes that you guys are using are environmentally friendly. You've reduced your energy footprint. You've figured out how can you recycle at the end of life. All those types of issues that you need to think of. So what I want to talk about is, we're going to go through these top 3, and we're going to talk about how Vault PLM can help you in your digital transformation journey, help shorten lead times, increase quality of products, and improve your product support by implementing Vault PLM. So typically when a design engineer creates their products or their projects, there's an assembly that might have an associated drawing. There's probably a bunch of library components they have to pull from. They create sub-assemblies with their own parts that might have their own drawings. And so as you can see, engineers just create a vast amount of documentation so that when it goes out to manufacturing, we can make sure that everything gets made properly. We can make sure that we have a good quality product that goes out to our customers. Now, because there's so much data and there's a lot of these interrelationships in the data, it's very important that we manage it in a system that is built to help us make it much more simple managing that complex data. And that's where Vault comes in. Now, Vault can manage a whole lot of different types of data. You can see that, pretty much most of the Autodesk products Vault can manage. There's a couple of, competitive MCAD products where Vault can reach in and can manage their data as well. But it's not even just about the CAD models. Oftentimes, engineers will need to get spec sheets for some of the materials or library items that they need to have ordered. Or what I see all the time are these, Excel spreadsheets that do all kinds of really cool calculations that are important to the end product and the end design. And so what you want to do is you want to take all of that design data and you want to keep it together in one location so it's easy to find. And so that everything is there in case in the future a question comes up, something gets audited, everything is easy to find, and everything, all of your ducks are in a row, your house is in order. Now, one of the things that Vault does really well to shorten customer lead times is help you find important data. A few years ago, a study was done, and they found that engineers spent 20 to 25% of their time just looking for information they needed to get their job done. So that's 8 to 10 hours every week that engineers were spent just looking for the data so that they could get their job done. So not actually doing, but just getting data so they could do their work. What's nice about Vault is there is a database behind the scenes and everything has all kinds of information in it. So just like you want to find something on the internet, you might go to Google and type in a keyword and a whole bunch of hits come up. We can do the same thing in Vault for your engineering data, where you can do keywords, information will come up and you'll be able to find it. What we've also been seeing a lot of customers do that has been helpful is they've taken some of the physical properties from their CAD models and been putting that automatically into Vault's database. And what that means is, let's say they're designing a shaft and they're like, hey, I'm looking for a shaft that's 1/2 inch in diameter, greater than 12 inches long. They can type in these kinds of searches and very quickly find what they're looking for. So you want to think about what type of searches your engineers are going to be doing, and then make sure that you have information set up to make it easy for them to quickly get the information that they're looking for. Another key way that Vault helps to shorten your customer lead times is it allows you to reuse existing design data. Very rarely do I talk to companies today and they say that they start designs from scratch every single time. I mean, it does happen, but I'd say 90% of the time when I go out and talk to companies, they are not building something from scratch. They're either taking an old iteration of a product design and then they're adding to it, they're changing it, they're making the next generation of that product line. Or if they're project focused, then they're taking a previous project that was done that was similar to the new one they're working on, and they use that as a starting point. And what's great is that Vault it has tools where you can go in and you can reuse components, you can create new copies of components. It brings along copies of drawings. It makes it really easy for you to set everything up so that within minutes, you now have a brand new model that you can start messing up and you can start changing and modifying, deleting, adding to, and you're not affecting the previous projects or products that were done. So it makes it very easy to reuse data and move on to additional projects or products. Another key way that it helps shorten customer lead times is we can automate manufacturing output. One company we worked with recently was taking, their engineers would take a day to go through and gather up all of the drawings and put it in a PDF file in the right format, in the right order. And, again, that's time that you're taking away from engineers doing what they should be doing, which is design work. And, you're taking a day of their time to put together these PDF packets or DXFs or, whatever you need to hand to manufacturing. And so with PDM, we can take these processes out from the engineer and we can automate it so that they don't have to worry about it. And that way manufacturing can get their information faster because computers can go faster than humans can. But it's also done correctly and consistently every time. And it frees up engineers so that they can do more projects and get more projects done faster. We also have the ability to let others outside of engineering access data inside of the PDM tool. So if they have a browser, if they have a smartphone or a tablet, they can actually go in even early in the design process and you can control what they can and can't see, but they can open up drawings, they can open up models, and they can start looking to see, hey, is there a mistake that the engineer didn't pick up? Was there a requirement from the customer that was missed? Things can be found much earlier in the process, which means that this also can increase the quality of your product, but it also shortens lead times because this cuts down having to go back and do rework later. Now, when we talk about improving product quality and kind of going along the lines of that previous slide I just talked about, Vault makes it easy to do review cycles with, again, people outside of engineering, and that can even be people outside of your organization. One company we worked with, they had an issue with a lot of scrap where they gathered all the requirements, did the design work, and then they would send out the product, and sometimes the customer would come back and say, that's not what we ordered. And at best case, you're gonna have to do a little bit of rework. Worst case, you're gonna have to scrap everything and rebuild it from the ground up again. And so what we can do is we can enable you, and by the way, with our PDM system, even someone in engineer or sales that has access to the PDM system can go in and start what's called a design share session. And with these design share sessions, it sets up a private area on the cloud where it sends either a 2D drawing, it sends your 3D model, it sends whatever you want the customer to review. And then you can invite customers, suppliers, design subcontractors. It sits outside of your firewall, so you can invite other important people that need to review this design, and they can do markups, they can do feedback, and then at the end of it, you can capture all of that information. So this can be used to make sure that the design is done right before you commit any manufacturing resources to it. And it can also, greatly help you improve the product, the quality of your product, and make your customers definitely a lot more happy. Another way that Vault or PDM can help improve your product quality is by ensuring that the manufacturing team is not using outdated information when they're putting together when they're manufacturing the product. So with PDM, maybe here I have Rev A that's released. Maybe I have Rev B that's still work in progress. And if someone goes in and does a search for that specific component, right now, the PDM is going to return revision A because that's what's released. Revision B is still work in progress and isn't ready to be released and manufactured to yet. But now once revision B does become released, one problem we see quite often is that with manual processes, the manufacturing will still pull revision A, even though they should be pulling revision B. But with a data management system, the next time someone goes in and does a drawing search, it's going to return revision B because that is the new released version. So again, a PDM system really helps you manage what's released, what's work in progress, and it helps make sure that what's being built out on the shop floor is the right revision, it's the right parts, and it makes sure that they have all the information they need to get their job done. Now, with PDM, once we're done with all of that design work and the engineers have put together, all of the information that they need to, what they're really doing is starting this engineering bomb. And the engineering bomb is going to be used. I mean, this is a very important part because the bomb is going to basically be used for all of those downstream processes. So if we, again, go back and look at the overall process, here we were with engineering, and this is where PDM and the CAD tools sit. And then usually that information is sent to PLM, and PLM is where generally the master bill of materials are kept because that's where engineers are putting their information. It's also where all of the processes are managed. So if you think of like change management, how do you do a change order? Non-conformance reports, any of those types of processes are generally managed in PLM. And also it becomes the backbone for enterprise-wide collaboration. CRM can communicate with PLM for customer information. Engineering can communicate with PLM for design, BOM information. And then we can communicate with all these other systems for bills of materials, pulling inventory, getting different types of information that we need. Now, specifically in Autodesk PLM, we support the new product introduction, enterprise BOM management, supplier collaboration, change management, and quality management. Now, when the BOM gets passed to PLM, you'll see that we get a view of it that a lot of your downstream users like purchasing and manufacturing and other groups, they will be able to go in here and will be able to see all of the information that they need, and they'll be able to add, if they want to add tooling information to the BOM, if they want to add other types of information, they can start expanding on this to build it beyond just what's needed for an engineering bill of material. In addition, all of the different items that get passed over to PLM, a lot of times we need to find out who are the approved manufacturers and vendors for those parts. That has to be defined. And so we can start adding more and more rich information to the item information that gets passed over from PDM. Now, as I mentioned, one of the key backbones of all of designs really is that bill of material. And what's nice about PLM is that we can look at what is the current BOM compared to what it was 4 or 5 months ago. And you can see that it makes it very easy to see what components were taken away, what components were revised, what components were added to the bill of material, in the past 4 or 5 months. We can also look at the present BOM, right? So this is the one that's currently released. And what's nice here too is that we can take any of these different views so that if someone needs to see costing, they can see a costing view. If someone needs to look at a BOM and quickly find out what items have received environmental approval and which ones still have not completed their environmental approvals, they can look at environmental compliance. So we can create all these different views. So depending on what your purpose is within the organization, you can quickly find and get the information that you need. But not only can we look at previous versions of BOMs, future versions, or current versions, but we can also look at future BOMs. And what that means, if you had a bill of material of 100 items, at any point in time, maybe 3 or 4 items on that bill of material are currently undergoing a change. And so what we can do with the Autodesk PLM tool is you can say, show me what the bill of material will look like after all of the pending changes have been completed. And then that will show you what parts are going to be removed, what parts are going to be added, and if any parts are actually going to be changed. So it's very powerful with bill of material management and helping us look at what was the current bill of material at any point in time, past, future, or current. Now, as important as the bill of material is, there's a lot of business processes that are also very important to manage. Everything from new product introduction, non-conformance, change orders and change requests, problem reports, deviation and waivers. There's all these different processes. And today, some of these may be processes that still have hand forms. Some of these might have Excel spreadsheets. We see Excel spreadsheets all the time to manage these types of processes. What that typically means is that those processes are kind of disconnected from each other. So someone's only thinking about, I'm doing a non-conformance. And then, if at the end of that non-conformance, it's decided, hey, we need to make changes, then a whole new process has to be started for change requests, change orders, and other processes. And they're not very well connected together. And so PLM is about connecting those processes so that everything works together, and it creates these audit trails that you can use to fix issues down the road. To give an example, let's go ahead and look at a typical return merchandise authorization process. So we're going to start with an RMA inside of PLM. And in this example, maybe there was some shipment of some graphics cards, and we had some power supply failures, and we found out after this was returned from the customer that some capacitors were missing from the PC board. So this just is an example of what an RMA might look like. Now here we're documenting the problem. We're documenting what we found when the product was returned, and more importantly, there's a process that's followed when we do returns. We do some triage, we do some failure analysis, inspection, and then we go through and have our engineers review all of that information. Now, when we get to this engineering review station, we have a decision to make. Is this really not a problem? Maybe the customer returned something because they didn't like it. Maybe there were other issues. So if it was really a non-issue, then we can just complete it and say, this was a one-off issue. Or if it's something that we're concerned that's going to be a broader issue and requires further investigation, then we can have it automatically create a corrective and preventive action. So, without the engineer doing anything, they just send it here, and now we've automatically started a corrective and preventive action. So if we go back to our business process chart, we're now moving from the RMA up to the corrective and preventive action. Now, the RMA, once we create that corrective and preventive action, notice that we get this link here, so that if any time down the road we're looking at this RMA and we want to know, what was reviewed, what corrective actions were taken, we can click on this link, and we're creating this trail that will lead us to all of the upstream processes from this RMA. So now we have our corrective and preventive action that's created. And here we're thinking about, what is our short-term fix? What are our long-term fixes? We're doing options analysis. We're trying to figure out what is the best way to approach and to fix this problem. And of course, just like the RMA had its own workflow or its own process that was followed, all of our CAPAs also have their own process that are constantly followed. Just like before, when we get to the review, if it's decided, no further work needs to be done, then we can close it. Otherwise, if some long-term fix was found that requires even further attention and requires some type of a change, then we can issue an ECR or a change request. So again, coming back to our business flow chart here, Now our kappa would go into a change request. So remember, we started with an RMA that flowed into a corrective action, and then our corrective action flowed into a change request. So now, if we look back at our corrective and preventive action, if we want to go backwards back to the RMA, again, we have that link here, and we can get back to, what was the return. And we can also go forward in the process to the change request. So everything has these links, creating this trail that makes it easy for us to basically audit and figure out why were changes made. So now we have our change request where we fill in all of our information, just like the other processes that we were talking about previously. It has its own workflow that it goes through. And then when we complete the change request, then that will issue a change order. And change orders in PLM really are primarily to change and make revisions to items and bills of materials. So again, just like before with the kappa, if we look at the change request, I can go back to my corrective action if I want to, or I can go forward to my change order. Everything is linked together. And if I look on my change order, now I'm going to start documenting all of the information that's needed to make the actual change. Here you can see these are the affected items. Notice that we can obsolete items, we can release items, and we can revise items. So, if you have 50 different items on your change order, for each item, you can decide, do we want to bump the revision? Do we want to obsolete? Or is this like an initial release that we're making? Then just like before, it has its own workflow. And when we get to the end of its workflow, what's nice is what it will do is it will actually go back and close the change request, which will close the corrective and preventive action, which will close the RMA out. So all of these are connected into one process. If you ever go to the RMA, you'll see kappa pending, you go to the kappa, change request pending, and as soon as everything gets fixed, then everything gets completed. So this leaves you a nice audit trail, and it makes it very easy to go through and find out why certain changes, why certain decisions were made. All of that is documented in one system. Now, out of the box, all of these different processes are connected like you see on the screen. And we've talked to some companies where they say, hey, we don't do change requests, and that's fine. We can remove change requests and reroute these. It's not a problem with Autodesk PLM. Sometimes they have other processes that aren't even listed here, and that's fine too. We can arrange for those processes to be here, and we can fit them in wherever they need. But really, the key takeaway from this slide is regardless of how close or how different your processes match what you see on the screen here, we can interconnect these business processes together so that they're intelligent, they are aware of each other, and you create one big continuous process where really you're looking at fixing problems. You're looking at how can we document this information so that future iterations of our product line can be much better and can make our customers much, much happier. Now, as I mentioned previously at the beginning of this presentation, digital transformation isn't just about connecting even processes within a system. It's also connecting processes to external systems so that information flows as seamlessly and as easily, mistake-free as it possibly can as you transition from one system and process to another. And what's great about PLM is, we can integrate with PDM to send information back and forth as needed. For change orders, we can pull inventory type information from ERP so that dispositions can be effectively decided upon. We can also send updated BOM information to ERP systems. So anyway, what we like to do is look at companies' overall processes and help you put together how this information flows from each of these systems and how you can effectively create a strategy for this information going back and forth and lifting your company so that you're able to create information, create products, create designs for your customers much, much faster. So in summary, really when you talk about the Vault PLM benefits as they relate to digital transformation, you want to shorten lead times. Shorten lead times by quickly finding data, reuse data that already exists in your system, automate your manufacturing outputs. Don't use expensive engineering time to do that manually. Share data with your stakeholders, and then integrate these systems together so that information can flow very fast and you reduce mistakes. From a quality perspective, doing design reviews can help find problems early in the process when it's easy to fix and get a better product out to your customer. Also release control to make sure that they're not making parts that shouldn't be made because they're not the released versions. Flexible change management, right? Being able to trace and audit all of the different changes that were made and understand why they were made and what rationale was behind it. And then, finally, from a product support, track internal and external issues. When you start seeing a bunch of RMAs that are similar, then you can start to see, hey, we have some problems here that we need to fix. And this lets you track internal and external issues so that you can address those proactively rather than doing it on a more reactive basis. And then, as I mentioned, you have an audit trail, you have these systems that are connected together, which really help increase the overall support that you can give customers for your product. All right, we're gonna go ahead and I'm going to turn the time back to Anthony, who is going to talk about what some of the next steps are and to wrap up today's presentation.
Thanks, Nathan, and thanks everyone. The key takeaway that I took from Nathan's presentation is many of you I see that are joined today have implemented Vault, have implemented a PLM system. And in working with several of you on the call today, I know that you've implemented those tools to benefit the users of the tools, finding information for engineers, managing revision process for engineers, sharing information maybe with manufacturing. And I believe what Nathan shared today, and we believe, is that we're going to see PDM and PLM be a requirement to embrace the opportunities that exist for the rest of our business. In order to better connect with your customers, you will need functionality like this. In order to begin to track and create analytics that can drive decision-making for you downstream in your process, tools like this will be important. And again, we have several questions that we're going to get to. And before we do, Nathan, go to the next slide. I want to share with you a couple of stories from some customers that have embraced this. And one of them is Bauer Compressors back on the East Coast. And by putting Vault in first, they began to review some of their products in place and notice that there was more customization required to deliver the products customers needed. And they began to save a lot of time in implementing automation to better design those products and turn around proposals and quotes in a faster amount of time. This wouldn't have been possible if they didn't have the analytics and data in place to manage and control the product information. Another example is JWC Environmental, close to where I live here in Orange County in California. They, like Bauer, have a product line that came out that needed to be configurable. And to respond to customers, they were able to take the information they had in Vault and quickly create new versions of those products to respond to customer requirements. This allowed them to create more proposals faster. And really, I mean, this metric here to go from 40 hours to 4 hours and turning around something meant that they began winning more business. And they began the ability to track their win conversion. So as engineers and configurations were sent, they began to understand what their win rate was as they delivered these proposals. And going forward, they're looking to now automate when an order comes in, automate the release to manufacturing. Trinity's an example of another customer in Texas who had a more complex environment. They had multiple subsidiaries, divisions, and locations throughout the world. And each of their locations was using a different way of managing product information. Trinity realized that they had invested a lot of money in customer information with tools like CRM. And realized that they should be investing as much money in the product information that they create. And we helped Trinity implement a single PDM solution to manage product data and build standards across the organization. Go ahead, Nathan. Now, several of you on the call also do not have a Vault in place today. And many of you that we've worked with for Vault have felt like Vault and any PDM solution has been kind of a little bit like black magic. You know, you're told to purchase it, it's hard to implement, you're not sure how to implement it. There's a lot of questions that are asked before you even see the product. And at KETIV, one of the ways we've adapted is we've recognized and worked closely with Autodesk to make Vault not just an on-premise solution, but a cloud solution. And our team has recently rolled out Vault as a service. And what this means for you is you can simply subscribe to Vault as a service, meaning that you have a Vault up and running the next day. Our team will continue to work with you to configure that Vault environment to meet the needs that you have. But this means that there's no hardware requirement, there's less IT involvement, you'll have the security that you expect from a solution like this, and you'll be able to shorten your time to get up and running. I encourage all of you who are not yet within a PDM solution to reach out to myself, Nathan, or the rep that you're working with to ask questions about this quick and best way to get up and running with a PDM solution. And the last thing I'll encourage you to do is connect with us to schedule a discovery. For those of you, and I see several here and some of the questions indicated as well, several of you have done that first step in implementing a PDM solution. You're seeing the benefits of it and are now questioning what kind of analytics you can get from a PDM tool. How do you move on to implementing PLM and sharing information with the rest of the business to create an environment that makes decisions based on data that you're capturing? All of you are available to connect with us to schedule a couple-hour discovery session with Nathan or one of his team members to really understand your environment today, to help you determine which parts of your process may be an opportunity to improve. We will typically look at how your sales to engineering workflow works. As an engineer, do you get requirements from sales and have to respond? And as an engineer, when you release information to manufacturing, how does that happen today? And are there ways to rethink the way you've done this for years and merge processes to not just speed up the work you do, but create a better opportunity and more responsiveness for your customers? With that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the Q&A so Nathan and I can respond to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start the Q&A. And the first question that I'll go ahead and respond to, it looks like we have some more coming in here. One of the questions has to do with Vault and the PLM tool, which was called Fusion Lifecycle. It actually comes from, I won't mention any names, but those of you that are DirecTV subscribers, every control in the world is made by this company. Thanks for the question, Michael. And Michael's question is about Vault and wondering if Vault is included with Autodesk PLM solution. And the answer is Vault is included with Fusion Lifecycle in a combined product line. So you can buy it with or without, Michael. I encourage you to talk to the team you're working with today to understand the difference in the two. If you're going to go with one or the other, you'll find that it makes sense to get the package that includes both. So yes, that option is available. The next question I see is somewhat of a concern from Rodney, who's in Utah. Thanks for joining, Rodney. And Rodney's asking, about the subscription model. And if I put my data in a solution like we shared today, can I get the data back? And that is a great question, Rodney, and one I've asked myself. We're a NetSuite user for our internal customer management tool. We use Asana for project management, which is a subscription tool. We have a lot of intellectual property and data in those tools. And all of the subscription or cloud offerings that exist today really have to have, and it's a requirement to allow customers to gather their data, given they choose to no longer subscribe. So yes, there are many ways to get that, whether you're talking about Vault or PLM, and our team would be happy to give you the details. But to broaden the answer a little bit is, as a consumer myself, I began subscribing to many more products for my personal life. And one of the things I've learned over this last many years when subscription came on is that in a subscription environment, it's all about the customer experience. It's all about improving the product to make that customer experience better. And I believe you will see that by subscribing with KETIV, subscribing with Autodesk, you're going to see that that product enhancement is no longer annual or something we're waiting for. The enhancements to the product, the experience provided to you are happening and improving on a daily basis. And we see that today with the technology that we represent from both Autodesk and ANSYS. And we're also responding with our own services and looking at ways to improve those going forward. We get surveys from all of you. And in fact, there'll be a survey at the end of this session that we can respond to. And it's all about making our partnership stronger as we work together. So that's a great question, Rodney. I appreciate it. Another question that came in is about analytics, which both Nathan and I mentioned a couple of times. And the question is, what kind of analytics can I get from a tool like Vault or PLM? And I can go on and on about the analytics. First off, there's a lot of choices you have on what's important for your business and in terms of what analytics you want to get. I'll give you a few examples that I've learned about recently from customers. And one has to do with product change. In the past, it was hard for this one particular customer to understand how many engineer change requests came in an annual per year. And how many of those change requests did they fulfill in a year? And if they looked at the change requests, how many converted to an actual change order? Now, this was not possible for them using paper methods or disconnected methods by using paper and maybe an ERP solution. But by implementing a Vault and PLM solution, they're able to now track how many change requests there are, look at the conversion to a change order, and understand the average time it takes to fulfill a change order. That's one example. Another example is a customer wanting to better understand how many, as they receive warranty claims, how many of those warranty claims actually initiated a product change to improve the product. Again, having disconnected systems to manage all of this, it was next to impossible for them to track that. They're beginning to track that now, and through that process are learning more about their customer requirements, learning more about the product improvements made, and it's creating a new way of thinking and innovating as they develop more products to come. And the improvements are really around being more proactive. As they ship products to customers, can they connect to those products and get data from the products in the field to help them predict and be more proactive around parts failing, around warranty issues, so that they're not waiting for customers to respond, but they're proactively providing the service needed to minimize any downtime. again, great questions that are coming in here. And we probably won't get to all of them, but we will definitely follow up with all of you. Nathan, do you see any other questions I missed that you want to answer?
There was one quick one that came in. Are the workflows within the demonstration that we saw today, are those standard templates or were they created specifically for the presentation? And I do want to reiterate that how I showed how those processes are interconnected, that is how they come out of the box. So that was nothing that was created specially for the presentation. You know, the data inside was definitely created just for this presentation, but the workflows and how they all connect together, that is how they come out of the box.
Great, Nathan. Well, with that said, I want to thank everyone for joining again. This is really about being better together. Let's not wait for progress. Let's make progress. And at KETIV, we believe we're stronger together, and that together is what drives innovation. So I encourage you to reach out to us, connect with your rep, call me anytime. I look forward to talking to you all. And again, we will have a session focused now on automation next month and how that fits in with this digital transformation theme. I look forward to talking to you all then. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you, everyone.